Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? We are 2 weeks on from the departure of Brendan Rodgers and the interim appointment of Martin O'Neill, and it feels like Celtic could be on the cusp of appointing the next permanent manager at the club. We went live on the channel in the aftermath of Brendan's resignation to discuss who could be the main runners and riders, the main candidates, who should Celtic be interviewing, and really who do we want to become manager. And there has been a whole wide range, a wide plethora of different shapes and sizes and profiles of manager around European and world football. And out of the top 5 list that I put together, right on the cusp of Brendan leaving, my number 5 position, my Ange factor, my Ange card in the equation, if we weren't going to go for tried and tested European, if we weren't going to go into that kind of elite UK market with like someone like a McKenna, for example, was going to be Wilfried Nancy. Now, I want to say this right early in the video, okay? I am nervous still. If we do appoint Wilfried Nancy, although this is somebody I'm very much behind, and we'll get into everything I know about him and everything I think you need to know about him if this appointment does come to fruition, a very exciting appointment, it still isn't bulletproof. I think we all know that at this stage. The MLS into European football, especially the elite end, isn't a well-trodden path and is fraught with, risk associated with it. So I am really crossing my fingers if this one does come through as well, but I do have a lot of faith, I do have a lot of belief that this could be a great Celtic appointment. And as you'll see as we go through the tail of the tape and how the Celtic squad might look under Wilfried Nancy, this is a real, I can't say it enough, and I don't want this to come across as like a lazy comparison or whatever, but there is a lot of parallels to when Celtic appointed Ange in so many different ways. Yes, Ange was a bit longer in the tooth. He had international experience with Australia, winning a cup, which again, for them is no mean feat. Never mind all the stuff he did in Japan before coming here. And again, we recognise that that is a bit of a jump, it is a bit of a leap. And, I think upon Ange's arrival and everything he did for us, we very quickly gave these leagues and credentials the merit they deserve. And I think MLS, Nancy, as I say, isn't quite as long as in the tooth as someone like Ange. And I do think that Australia experience was like an extra kind of factor in him translating very well to elite European competition. And that's not something that this guy necessarily has. But outstanding, but that to one side, personality, ideas on the game, play style, and even just that ability to go into a known market to maybe unearth some Celtic priced gems. I think there's a lot to be excited about here. In the video today, like I mentioned already, I'll break down everything I know about the guy. I follow a fair amount of MLS, believe it or not, for my sins. And this is a guy I know a fair amount about, which is why I included him in my top 5 to be, at least interviewed, is what I said at the time, and I'll stick by that for the time being until he's successful, and then I'll be saying he was top of my list the whole time. But yeah, we'll get stuck into all that. I want to see from you guys in the comment section your thoughts and feelings, maybe even at the beginning of the video and then at the end, or anything like that. Feel free to let me know preconceived notions, any ideas, gut feelings as well are always important, I think, in this case as well. So feel free to drop all that in the comment section. If you are new around here, please do hit like and subscribe for more content like this. Of course, throughout the international break, Celts are here. We love to get lots of topical content out there, looking at players, tactics, fixture patterns, things we've seen across the season so far. And with new managers incoming and January windows right around the corner, there's plenty to discuss. So if you do enjoy this type of content, please do hit subscribe for more. Of course, hit the like button. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one. Now, regular viewers and subscribers of CeltsAreHere have probably did a little bit of digging already after we mentioned Wilfried Nancy on that initial stream. But for many other Celtic fans, this is probably the first place you maybe came across him, was hearing about him being linked to the job and then jumping on to Wikipedia, to Transfermarkt, to all these types of places to get a little bit more intel. And I kind of like the structure and the way this flows, so I'll probably kind of use that to get us going in the video. But a little bit of context before we get into this in terms of MLS. MLS as an overall competition is very much a situation of parity. It's very much similar to every other American sport, where the worst teams get some help to try and strengthen year on year with the best kind of talent coming out of college, or different apparatus like that to try and level the playing field so that it's very competitive and very evenly spread. But despite their best efforts in that, football, soccer, whatever, doesn't go that way, of course. And MLS has very much became a league of haves and have-nots. There is no two ways about that. Montreal used to be called Montreal Impact, and very recently rebranded to Club de Foot de Montreal or something like that. And they were going to try and, change things. They were going to try and go from being one of the small spenders in the league that didn't really do very much to maybe trying to compete and maybe trying to catch up the league a little bit. They rebrand their club. They appoint Thierry as manager. But then through COVID and lockdowns and all the rest of it, Henry has to return to Europe and kind of abandon ship. And through all that kind of financial stress, it kind of came out of nowhere when they were planning quite a revolutionary, kind of era change at the club. The handbrake get pulled on that, and Wilfried Nancy finds himself in charge of Club de Foot de Montreal in 2021. Now, one thing that has to be kind of just added into a wee bit of context here is, again, through lockdown and coming out of COVID and all the rest of it, the Canadian teams in MLS were supremely shafted throughout this period. They couldn't go back to Canada ever. They were actually based in America the whole time, out of hotels. So essentially the whole season was away. They end up finishing 10th in the conference out of 14 teams, which isn't anything that remarkable. But again, a very low spender and very adverse conditions. If we have a look at the squad that they had on the last game of the season, they lost 2-0 to Orlando City. They got a man sent off and Rudy Camacho in the back three here. But like I mentioned, it's kind of laughable. Jordi Mihailovic is a very, very good player. But he was one of their designated players, and he was an American kind of native player, as it were. And Victor Wanyama, who wasn't actually too bad for Montreal, it must be said, was their biggest their highest spended player, biggest wages, DP kind of figure within the squad. And then it's some other guys, again, you're just never going to know them, Romel Kyoto's and one or two others, but very much a team of jobbers, very much a team at best built to defend. But with this system, they try and get some of their attacking players, Torres and Mihailovic, into some spots. And looking at the actual record they had in the league, they lost 12, they won 12, they scored 46, they conceded 44, a very middling team. But one thing that they did achieve in this season was they won the Canadian Championship. And what that means in MLS is that they beat the other Canadian teams home and away over the 6-game series, as it will be, and Vancouver and Toronto. This was the last game in this season that they played in Toronto. It was away from home. Toronto, no big shakes themselves, it must be said, but they got a 1-1 draw, which ended up securing the title for them. The reason that's important is because that then qualifies them for CONCACAF Champions League. Now, the Champions League in North America is not as cool as our Champions League. It's not as great as our Champions League. It's not as competitive, yada yada, we get that. But it is a huge step up in trip, because as much as we're talking about MLS and kind of the fundamentals of what it means over there, etc., Liga MX, or the Mexican League, is like, it's like Scotland and England. It's like Montreal being maybe like a Ross County type situation, just spend absolutely nothing, and then going into a situation where you're playing against the Premier League clubs, the best Premier League clubs versus the best, or playing against probably all the Scottish clubs in a sort of competition, as it were. It's kind of how it works out. You do get some teams from Costa Rica and Honduras and all the rest of it, but for the most part, the big opposition is the Mexican teams. And in his first full season at charge, after taking over from Henry and getting out of lockdown and actually being able to be based out of Canada, etc., they get to the quarter-finals of the CONCACAF Champions League, which beating Santos Laguna home and away, and then narrowly missing out to Cruz Azul home and away, who themselves were very narrow and missing out on the final, is no mean feat at all. This is the team that beat Santos Laguna, so this is like probably up there with, Montreal. Like, I've been watching MLS for a long time. I had a feeling this video would be full of tangents, so I'm really sorry, right? But I can't remember when it was, but you'll be able to check it out. But when Drogba played for Montreal, they were in the Champions League, and I ended up watching the semi-finals and the final that year because they had a Scottish guy in their team called Callum Malice, I want to say his name was, and I just found it crazy that there was a Scottish guy playing with Drogba in a Champions League semi-final to then final sort of thing. So Montreal have a wee bit of form for maybe, having a bit of fun in the Champions League when they had Drogba in their team, which they clearly obviously don't right now. But they beat Santos Laguna at home 3-0. Jordi Mihailovic is in the team. We mentioned him already. Lapalainen has been a pretty good player. He actually ends up at Columbus later on with Wilfried Nancy. Victor Wanyama still in the team, but a player out of the academy being brought through into Montreal is Ishmael Akone, and he is, I can't remember how old he is, we could go and check it out, but I don't want to break the screens or whatever, but I think maybe about 17 or something like that. This guy then ends up going to Watford and Marseille. He's having a bit of a career. He's in Europe right now. He breaks into the team at this point, plays a big role in this win. But look who comes off the bench, our wee pal Alistair Johnson. And this is the second leg against Cruz Azul, the crunch game. The first leg they lost 1-0, so this was a game they had to win and not concede. Alistair Johnson started, Ishmael Akone plays, again all their kind of better players start, and you see maybe a bit of a change of tactic, a little bit of a change of shape here to face the opposition, deal with the problem at hand. But Santiago Jimenez's Cruz Azul, he's now at AC Milan, in case you keep up with European football, were ultimately just a little bit too good and got past them on this one. But you've just seen the squad there, very similar to the year before, where they won 12, they lost 12, they were very middle of the road, going nowhere very fast. Yeah, Kone is coming through the academy, Lapalainen's in the picture, Alistair Johnson's been traded in from Nashville. But Montreal in this season finish second in the Eastern Conference. Now, they have conceded probably a few too many goals, but they've scored 63. And to score 63 goals with that team in MLS is wildly impressive. Philadelphia Union outscored them in this season by like 9. It's a good margin. But overall, only 2 other teams have outscored them. LAFC, who go on to win MLS in this league, who have got Gareth Bale and Carlos Vela and some supreme talents. In Austin, I think they had a good first year. They had a very good home record. Were the only teams that outscored them. Now, again, compared to everyone else in the league, both the New York clubs, Miami, the guys from LA, even Seattle Sounders, there's tons of teams here who have got way better attackers who have not even scored the same amount as this team. This is a very noteworthy achievement. They get themselves into the playoffs, which is not a regular thing for Montreal. And again, they get themselves to the quarterfinals, where eventually they lose out to my boys, New York City. That's who I follow over on MLS. As well as Seattle. I quite like Seattle. But they beat Orlando in the last 8, and then they get to the quarterfinals, lose out to New York, finishing second. Supremely successful season. But if we look at the table here, recent MLS Cup winners who we know Nancy is about to go to, Columbus Crew, have had big stars leave. They've had a bit of a transitional period. It's not went well for them. Guys have retired as well since they've won MLS Cup, and they in this season found themselves out of the playoffs. And really not a too dissimilar situation to where Montreal was when Nancy came in. You know, very much middle of the road. 46 scored, 41 conceded. You know, wins and losses almost in parity with each other. But they see this guy at Montreal on a shoestring pulling out these results, and they just ship him straight in, no questions asked. And, you know, I wouldn't say it's very unusual, but, you know, seeing somebody like Nancy coming in for like Henry, that kind of coach stepping up to interim and then maybe getting the gig, this kind of thing happens in football. We've seen it enough times. But for it to go to the extent where another team like pulls them up the food chain and really wants them to not only just take that and apply it on a bigger scale, but for it then, as you guys know, you've read this tale of the tape, for it to actually work. Now, they only finished third in the conference in the year that they go on to actually win MLS Cup. They've turned all those draws, seemingly they've swapped their draws and their wins column around essentially, and they've increased their output in goals massively. They go on to win MLS Cup in the final against LAFC, who were the holders. Obviously no Gareth Bale this time, but they had Giorgio Chiellini in the building, and they had, again, this whole team was the champions the year before, the best team. They scored more goals than everyone. They were absolutely fantastic and a really star-studded MLS level team. And Columbus and Nancy have done good business to build this team and to transition it from where it was. Aidan Morris, again, has came through the academy. He's now in the championship with Middlesbrough. Darlington Nagbe is a bit of a goat when it comes to MLS, a player we were linked to when he was leaving Portland. He's won MLS Cup now that he did it here with Columbus with 3 different teams. The guy's been around for ages. He's just announced his retirement. Quite similar in a lot of regards to McGregor, maybe a bit more physical, a bit more, you know, robust in that sense. Big engine on him, but in terms of play style and his role in the team, very, very similar. But you'll recognise Rudy Camacho from Montreal. He's made it over here, and again, a very similar parallel from the Montreal team to the Columbus team is the middle of the back three. Rudy Camacho is, again, kind of similar to Callum McGregor in how he plays that deeper midfielder of the three, but he's more of a back three unit in the Nancy type shape. Amundsen's a left back converted to left centre back. Does that not sound like something we're after? They've brought in Diego Rossi, who was a big signing for them after they lost a big player, Columbus Crew, in their transitional period. Diego Rossi was an LAFC player, went to Fenerbahce, didn't work. He's came back, so a bit older, still expensive, but not one of those like superstars. Cucho Hernandez went to Europe very early with Watford, went on loan around Europe, didn't really work out for him. He went to Columbus as one of their big players, their DPs, won MLS Cup. He's now playing for Betis and doing pretty well. So this team did have some money spent on it, no two ways about it. It had to be constructed, it had to be built. And in this year where they did win MLS Cup, they were actually the top scorers in all conferences, even though they only finished third in the league. On 67 goals, they were the highest scorers with the biggest goal difference as well. So instant impact in season 1, which is again something that we are sort of after, isn't it? Last year, a little bit of a different story. They finished second in their conference, so a little bit of an improvement there. They've scored even more goals. The only team in the conference that's outdone them and outscored them is Leo Messi's Inter Miami. And otherwise, we look across the conference, again, nobody's got as many points as them or as many goals. Going into the playoffs, ended up losing to New York Red Bulls, who eventually found himself in the final, a team led by Emil Forsberg, who again is a name that you might be familiar with, and you probably know what the Red Bulls are all about with their sort of system. Again, looking at the team from the year before, Diego Rossi in and out with injury. Aidan Morris is left for the championship, who was a main figure in their team. They're relying on Christian Ramirez. Remember, he played for Aberdeen. And they lost to Lewis Morgan. Connor Harper, who was on trial for Celtic for a wee minute, wasn't he? And anyone else of interest in this team? I don't think anyone really of note. And in this 2024 season, where in the league stage, they were only outdone by Leo Messi's Inter Miami. They actually went in the Champions League all the way to the final, where they lost to Pachuca, sadly 3-0. On this run, they beat Monterrey, they beat Tigres, they beat Houston Dynamo, which again, an MLS team, maybe that's less prestigious. But beating Mexican teams home and away all the way to the final, and sadly losing out at the very last, is a very noteworthy achievement, especially against a team that has Idrisse and Solomon Rondon in it from Liga MX as well. And this would have probably been played in Mexico the way this goes as well. I think there is a home field advantage the way these finals go. So I think Pachuca would have been at home potentially, if memory serves me right. But there's also this other competition in North America called MLS Cup, where it is explicitly only Mexican and American team or MLS teams that play against each other. There's no Costa Rican teams or anything like that kind of getting into the mix. And this is a new competition. It's not very old, but in the 2024 season, Columbus Crew actually go all the way and bloody win the thing. And guess who they beat in the final by 3-1? LAFC again, wouldn't you know it? So in the last 4 seasons since this guy's been in, he has taken the poorest team in the league from nowhere to being one of the most attacking outfits in the competition he's in. Went to a team I would liken Columbus Crew to maybe like a Leeds United or an Aston Villa, like a team that's kind of like big, got a lot of history to it, but they've never been like the big dogs in the neighbourhood, as it were. So they've got a bit of something about them. They spend some money, as we've seen, and in season 1 wins MLS with them. The season after that goes to a CONCACAF Champions League final, wins Leagues Cup, and domestically, before you get to playoffs, we're only bested by Leo Messi's Inter Miami. Is very noteworthy achievements, like I kind of said in the tip-off of this. And if we do appoint him, I think this is going to be, it's got the potential to be very exciting and very good for us as Celtic fans, because this is a guy that if you listen to him in the way he talks...
How do you get that buy-in into your model, and quickly?
Yeah, the idea is, again, because of my background as a student of the game and also the academy and so on, I did a lot of experiences, and also with when I was assistant coach. So I was taking note all the time. And I figured out that, first of all, the no-brainer for me is joy. I've been in different situations that we had joy and we didn't have joy. And joy for me is not like a smile, try to smile every day. No, I'm not the type of guy. But this is more about be happy about what we are doing, what we do. Because the idea is to become all the time a better me. So yesterday we did something, today is it big about what we learned, can we do something better? And this growth mindset, for me, this is so important. So everything is connected with the way I see human being and the way we play. So there is 3 criteria really important for me as a profile. So the first one is effort. So you have to make the effort. It's normal. If you don't do it, you are out. The second is audacity. Be audacious, because I believe that if you are audacious in life, you're going to get the rewards. If I start here and I want to go there, even though I'm not able to reach where you are, I'm going to learn a lot of things. I'm going to become better. So the game is about this. Can we try things? Because again, I'm going to go back to what I said before: fulfillment, emotions, and the last one is brain. Because my game is all about a lot of nuances, like life. The gray zone. This is not black and white in life. This is the gray zone all the time. So the idea is to challenge my players in these 3 criteria. And the most important is now, who do we want to become? And the values are more important than the style of play, because I need people who want to try things. If they have a fixed mindset, it's difficult. I tried, but it's difficult one moment because they're going to say, no, the ego is going to be too difficult for them because I don't want to make mistakes. So the idea is to find the balance and to challenge and to support at the same time the players when they try things. And the most important also is clarity in not the game model, because the game model, this is general, but in the concept that we have. And because in my mind, this is clear about, I simplify the complexity of the game. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is, I am the best coach and so on. No, I figured out that I had tools to simplify the game to transmit to my players. So the how, I try to simplify it. And the fact that I'm able to simplify the how gives more freedom to the player to try stuff. And because of that, because of the environment that we have here, that you come here, this is the best environment that we can have in your life to try things.
It brings those Ange vibes of wanting to have fun football, wanting to attack, wanting to maximise the most out of yourself, your career, the team, the situation, and go for everything. The guy, yeah, he's not won everything he's been in, but I dare say he's won a damn sight. A lot, you know, he's won tons. He's done very, very good in the short time he's been there. And the one thing, again, that's kind of been a flavour through that little kind of tail of the tape we've just went through is MLS transfer policies are wild in terms of how they work, between all the stuff that they'll do domestically in terms of player trading and drafting out of college and all that kind of stuff is really done with the back office. It's done with the powers that be. Now, the coach has a lot of, especially at a team like Columbus, they have a lot of say, less so at Montreal. They have a lot of say on, like, this is what I need in the window. We need a striker that's like this. We need a midfielder that's like that. Go and get them. And they kind of leave those guys to go and do what they do, whether it's a domestic transfer or they can pull somebody from Europe or South America. But he's done a lot of domestic transfers, and with those ones you have to be quite cute with knowing what your budgets are and, you know, what you're getting in a trade situation. So a guy, again, that really, no matter what extent he's involved in the transfer policy, I think will couple well with whatever structure Celtic are trying to get going. And I say trying because they say they're doing it. They're now kind of acting as if they can back it up in some way, so let's see if they can back it up. I really do hope as well, right before we get into the tactics and how this could lay out, I really hope they give Wilfried Nancy like 15 million carte blanche and go and get some guys. I think we'll touch on that in the video very quickly at the end, so stay tuned for that. But this is the squad. If we do appoint Wilfried Nancy in the international window that we're in right now, that he will have upon arrival at his disposal. And, you know, we know the holes, we know the weaknesses in a lot of the positions that we've got here. The imbalance in midfield, we don't have a right wing, all of our strikers are crocked. And between the defence, like, it's just a bit of it's just so muddy, isn't it? This is a very likely situation of what we could see from a Wilfried Nancy type formation and tactics with the current Celtic team. I've got a few of these drafted out, a few different maybe if scenarios, what if scenarios kind of thing. But for that Columbus team, for Celtic, like the idea, the mantra is going to be, we're dominating the ball, we're going to be attacking, we want to score lots of goals. And I think somebody like Tuneke, with the defensive attributes he has, could be a very attacking left winger that just needs to be a bit cautious when we don't have the ball. A role that he's kind of doing anyway. I don't think this is really too out with his kind of wheelhouse, as it were. I think we all want Thierry to get into a left centre-back position here, and we could see the real benefits of this, because whether it be a Malte Amundsen or a Rudy Camacho, some of the teams we looked at already for Wilfried Nancy, one of these guys, if not two or three of them, need to be good on the ball, need to be able to come out. And I seen some people in the Axom live chat when I was on Axom on Monday saying that he plays like Rodgers, it's possession ball, it'll be boring and all the rest of it. And that's not the case. He really loves crazy overloads, and it's not quite inverted fullback territory, but like centre backs will have license to just go and attack if they're on the ball, if they see an opening, and go and overload. So even though we might, you know, we'll look at it with some of the other ones, we may actually start with 5 defenders. They've got real overload ability where they can really push on and do some different bits and pieces. So I think Tuneke would have real license to get up and attack. You then get somebody like Tierney to cover in and behind them. And I think for legs, this is eventually would be Alistair Johnson, of course, but for the time being, somebody like Kobe Donovan could fill this role quite nicely. And we've seen the success of Trusty and Scales. But for me, I have been crying out for a box midfield, and it's essentially what we're going to get out of them. These players that are going to support the attacker have the freedom to go into wide areas, have the freedom to swap sides, are really tasked with being high up the pitch and being attackers. And I just think we have the components in the team to get more out of the current players that we do with a shape like this. So I think it will be an instant hit tactically. If we look something like this, I don't think it can go too far wrong. Based on what we've seen at the weekend, if there is any sort of foreshadowing, anything kind of coming down the pipe, like I said, you could get a kind of five defender situation here, where again somebody's just got absolute free license to roam if they're on the ball or space opens up to go forward and attack. But really, ultimately, it should give a lot more freedom to the supporting midfielders of McGregor and Engels, I would suspect, to really support these players up here. So if Taneki wants to peel out, Maeda comes in, we've got Negren as a second striker. We've then got a midfield to kind of still maintain that kind of 5 attack, 5 defence thing that we've seen under Maloney and O'Neill so far. And that's going to be good for the likes of McGregor, I would suggest as well. And someone like Taneki, I think, could really thrive, even in this role here. I think the kind of left wing role, he could be very, very good at that. I think that's maybe a wee bit more of keeping Tierney in at left centre-back rather than Taneki would be amazing at that. It's a little bit of how do you make that left wing work with Tierney and left centre-back. And if we can play Tierney or Sriracha, who's injured right now, at left wing here, Taneki, I think, or even Balikwisha, I would pose, could do very well in this type of role, in this type of shape, and we could get a lot more out of who we have already. And whether it's Donovan or Ralston in the interim, I think it's probably going to be somebody like that plays in the right wing position. But this is going to be about really making the front three a front three, exploiting space, cheating, doubling up on different sides, and having a midfield that don't let the counter-attack happen, stop the counter-attack, and if we do get on the ball, play it forward with wide players that, again, just offer you those extra options that you're going to ask for. Now, something like this I could also see happening, and this might be a bit wacky, this might be a little bit left field, right? But the boy Rudy Camacho, who's played in this role for him already, very similar to Bernardo. Bernardo's maybe got a bit more legs about him, maybe he wants to be an attacking midfielder, he says that all the time, and that's maybe what stops him going all the way back into centre-back, as he wants to be an attacking midfielder. But this player needs to be good on the ball. This player could be McGregor, and I've got a little slide where we'll look at that in a minute. But again, I'm trying to put myself in the headspace of how attacking could this guy go, because Celtic dominate the ball domestically, especially, unlike anything else he's experienced before, and having that real control and dominance and ability to turn the screw on a team, like how far could this guy take it potentially? I think we all see the value somebody like Engels could have in one of these right wing positions, and again, looking at the players he's had in these roles at Montreal a little bit more than at Columbus, he could do something like that with a guy like Engels. We've seen how good McCowan and McGregor were together as like a double engine, a kind of double piston, kind of engine room, double pivot type of thing. And for the style of play we're talking about here, they could work very well as a tandem at just, you know, pushing the attack on and taking turns, one attacking, one sitting and covering. And that could be something that works, especially if you've got Bernardo behind it, who, again, like I say, these guys have license to go on and overload. So even if it's Big Bernardo has got the chance to, you're going to start back here, buddy, but once the ball gets moving, we want you up here. He might just take that and run with it. He could be great at it, who knows. Like I say, I do fancy Balikwisha in this type of system, as do Negren. I just think these guys, you want them in the final third with players running around them and having some different options to work with. And like I say, I think this could be like a super attacking option, real left field effort. Now, McGregor could be the guy that slides in here. I really hope not. I really, really hope not, because McGregor just doesn't really have the defensive, like, it's not like he's not good defensively. He is, of course, but it's like he's a 7 or a 6 for defence. And I think for where our midfield is and the weaknesses we've had in Europe and at the top end of our game, with McGregor being one of the key defensive components, is that we really need a guy that's just another mark above him. And it's no slight on him, it's just reality. So I really hope this isn't the case, but I think you could then maybe look at something like a Negren, Engels kind of midfield in here. We could then maybe look at bringing a striker back into the equation, which at the moment, if everyone's fit, is probably Iheanacho. January window around the corner. I definitely want to talk about that before we finish. But yeah, Tierney at left wing back, Donovan, or soon to be Alistair Johnson again, and you give McGregor just this freedom to, again, McGregor might not go all the way into the box, is my only concern with this, because he just will probably stop himself short and fall back into a little bit of type perhaps. But I think you would see a very similarly good performance like we have from Engels and Negren in recent weeks in a system like this, perhaps, where again they've always got lots of players to play with, they've got lots of options on both sides of the pitch, one of them can go, one of them can cover. And yeah, this could work out quite nicely. I hope something like this doesn't happen, in all honesty, but I just had to float it out there for you. And the last slide I've got prepared is, what would the best dream 11 of everyone fit and available in our squad maybe look like under this guy? Like I said, we want to imagine Alistair Johnson in the team. Carter Vickers, as we know, is out for ages. But this could be, like, imagine this, and yeah, maybe Dyson leaves and we bring in another striker, but let's just keep Dyson here for the moment. This could be really fun. like Jota in this type of position. I know it's maybe too early to think about Jota coming back yet, but when I was thinking about this, Jota would have to be in the best 11, wouldn't he? And he would have to be in this position, you would imagine. And like this could be, again, imagine Jota and Tuneke and Thierry down the left. Wouldn't this just be mad overkill? And then you've got Alistair Johnson, who again can run the line, but if we are going so far down the left, we can kind of slide across. He can do a bit of that. Engels has got the range of passing. This could work really well. This could be a lot of fun, and I thought I would put that out there. But like I said when I very first brought Nancy into the conversation here, is for me, if you wanted the Ange Postecoglou factor, then look no further. He's the guy from the world of the wilderness of world football, who could come in, who's got the credentials, got the track record, and maybe got the minerals, maybe got a wee bit of the material to make it work at Celtic. Although it will be a gamble, it will be a fingers crossed, and let's hope it pans out. Then I'll finish the video with this, because if Wilfried Nancy is our next Ange Postecoglou, then Alonso or Tico or Adrian, as it says on this screen, Martinez is the Kyogo, is the guy that we should be going out and spending £6, £7, £8 million, dollars, whatever we need to get in. This is the exact striker we need, who would fit into the Nancy system, fits into exactly what we are missing. Very Kyogo-esque, a huge engine, and he has just been finishing. This guy has been great to watch. He's been a breath of fresh air, is an absolute bagsman, scores all sorts of goals, has a huge engine, is a great team player. And yeah, that's what I want to finish the video on. If Wilfried Nancy is Ange, this guy is Kyogo. I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on how the team could look under Nancy. Should we appoint him? Should we not? Is it too much of a gamble? Is it the right sort of gamble? You know, I want to see your thoughts and feelings in the comment section, because this one's probably going to rumble on for a few days yet. I hope you did enjoy the video. On screen and now some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Hail, hail, and mon the hoops.